Welcome to the podcast Đài Tiếng Nói Thú Cưng, the pet talk show of Voiceless. I am Ella Nguyễn, founder of Voiceless, and I am the host of this podcast. This is the episode number 4 of the podcast Đài Tiếng Nói Thú Cưng, the pet talk show of Voiceless. The topic of this episode number 4 is Voice for the Voiceless, and that's why I am here. This place is a kind of a little heaven. This is not only a social enterprise, but this is also a rescue place for dogs. And I'm very pleased to introduce you our special guest today. He's one of the co-founder of this place, our house. Let's meet Alex Watt.
Hey everybody, welcome to our house. This is Alex. I'm one of the co-founders, along with my two other co-founders, Geneva and Jay. Together we are an American, a Filipina, and a Vietnamese working to support sustainable animal welfare in Vietnam.
Morning, Alex.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Okay, nice to see you too. Alex, what a nice surprise. When did you order that?
Well, you know, our house is a space that is not only for animal rescue, but is also for enjoyment with F&B. So we provide food and drink that supports the cause, allowing us to make animal rescue sustainable here in Vietnam.
I see. So this is your place, this restaurant, right?
That's
Serving
right.
that? Okay. Yeah. I think I can save it for my lunch.
Sure.
Okay. Can you tell me why this place, you named this Our House, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so our house really stands for Rescue House.
Mm-hmm.
The concept is that it is a home for rescues, but it's also everyone's home. So it both means our in terms of rescue, but our in terms of our house.
Oh.
So this is an English interpretation of it. And the idea is that we're creating an inclusive community space that also has a purpose.
I see. Okay. Can you tell me more about yourself and
Sure.
your time before Our House?
Sure. So originally I'm from the US, born and raised in North Carolina, and I moved to Asia in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 4 years in the Philippines, and then I moved to Vietnam with my partner in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of 2019, we had the inspiration to begin our house. We saw the need for a more structured and sustainable approach to animal rescue in Vietnam. And we decided that we had ideas that could help to revolutionize the way that we do animal rescue in Vietnam by making it really community driven and community supported.
All right. Did you do something related to animal in US or in Philippines before?
Well, not in a professional capacity, but my whole life I've grown up with dogs and training dogs and having them as a part of my life, brothers and sisters. And it was something that I've always been passionate about, but never have taken on in a professional sense. On the F&B side, though, I did help to start up a restaurant, bar, and lounge outside of my university. Helped to build that from scratch with the entrepreneur who founded it. And I've always had an inspiration and desire to get more involved in creating my own F&B model. But Geneva and I had the idea of how could we actually pair that passion with the same passion that we had for dogs.
I see. So Janae is the co-founder as well.
That's right. So Geneva and I moved here in 2019. And when we moved here, we had that idea of bringing our passions together to get involved in something that could make a difference in the community. We didn't know at that time that it was going to be in the form of animal rescue or working with dogs and cats. But that's what it turned out to be. So in some way, it was more like destiny. That we didn't come here with the intention to do that, but we found the need and the opportunity to do that along the way.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. I love what you're doing. What inspired you to get started with what you're doing now?
Well, the thing about the modern world is that we have the chance to get involved in things, share ideas, and build things in ways that we haven't been able to in the past, because we have technology, social media, and we can communicate different concepts like social enterprises in ways that 10 or 20 years ago was not so easy. The other thing is that as foreigners in a country like Vietnam, we have the opportunity to bring some new ideas that maybe haven't been tried here before, and also use the opportunities and the challenges of what the situation here to address something in a new and novel way. So when we saw how serious the animal welfare situation was in terms of needing structure, needing support, we thought maybe we can provide a solution to that, and maybe we can take the extra time and the energy and ideas we have to build something that is then supported by the community.
All right. Okay. But, or is there any story or scenario of about a dog or a cat or something that like that trigger you starting doing things?
Sure. Well, when we moved here, I was traveling internationally a lot for my work. And Geneva and I thought it would be great to start to build a family in some capacity through adopting a dog. And Geneva found the local shelters, starting with Saigon Time Shelter in Binh Chanh. She found the shelter, was doing a lot of Google Translate to communicate with the shelter in English and Vietnamese. And through that, we went to visit Saigon Time Shelter during one of our first visits to Ho Chi Minh City before we moved. And we ended up finding our first dog, whose name is Knox. And we adopted Knox actually the same exact week that we moved to Vietnam. So we jumped right in with the adoption, and then we saw the amazing work that the shelters were doing, but we saw how challenging it was for them to communicate about that work, especially outside of the Vietnamese context. So we thought, how can we help to bring awareness to the amazing work that the shelters are doing, while also providing a solution to help make it more sustainable?
Alex, as you are the expat traveling and working around the world, you may witness the differences of the way people treat animals. So can you share me from your perspective, what are the gaps of the animal welfare in Vietnam to compare with other Asia Pacific countries?
Sure. So definitely having diverse experiences and seeing the way that animal welfare is managed in different locations is an important part of thinking about how could we support Vietnam in having a more structured and sustainable approach to animal welfare. So in the States, of course, there is government support. There are ASPCAs, there's humane societies, there are shelters in almost every county in every state of the US, and that provides a whole ecosystem and funding that makes rescue able to happen in a way that is more sustainable, more structured, more manageable, and with rules and regulations and expectations. In some other countries in the region, there are certain ways that governments are supporting. Maybe in the local government units, they are supporting in small ways to provide structure and spaces for animals who are homeless or abandoned. But right now in Vietnam, there's really no structure, there's no government support, and there's no real system for how we can manage, especially companion animals like dogs and cats. One of the big challenges is also the education, is that pet ownership is a relatively newer phenomenon in Vietnam, where dogs or cats were often more like a commodity, or they were used for security or protecting the house, or keeping the house clean from other animals that were coming in, things like that. But now many more people are finding animals as a part of the home, a part of the family. And so when you have that transition, there's also a need for knowledge transition. And we're also supporting and providing part of that education and part of that awareness raising, because when there's such a gap in the understanding, that also means that people may have good intentions, but they don't really know how to deliver and follow through on that. So a lot of what we do is not only on the structure of supporting the ecosystem for animal welfare and animal rescue, but also in supporting the education of the new pet owners so that they can have a better idea of how to take care and bring a pet into their family in the best way.
I see. Okay. So besides the difference that you just shared, if you can compare Vietnam with the animal welfare in with Thailand or with Singapore, or, I mean like the other neighborhood country of Vietnam. So what are the differences?
Well, so Vietnam has a different set of circumstances than other countries in the region. One of the stigmas that we're working to overcome in Vietnam is related to the dog and cat meat trade. Upwards of 5 million animals are still trafficked or stolen or consumed every year for meat. And this is one of the big stigmas that a lot of foreigners especially have about Vietnam. So some people see the culture of Vietnam is supporting that, when in reality it's actually something that's really being phased out and is really something of a different generation. And the younger generation is taking a lot of strides to work to embrace pets and embrace animal welfare. So what we see here at our house is that the Vietnamese community is extremely strong and also very passionate about turning the tide of the conversation about animal welfare, and also phasing out the kind of things that are seen by many as not being appropriate, and not being the right way to look at cats and dogs and the animal welfare situation.
All right. I agree with you on that opinion, Alex, because to my observation, and of course with some of the research, the thing is the pet community of the Vietnamese growing gradually every year. And last year it's about 11 million dogs and cats, companion animal, in the big cities of Vietnam. That thing go with the trend of social media growing, and the dog meat and cat meat consumption, or like animal abuse. The trend decreased a little bit because of the viral or the way people against it in the social media. So I think it's some of the way that help to like limit the situation.
Definitely. And so social media has a really big opportunity to share about, why people are saying this is not a good thing. It's not against a culture. It's about how can we be better humans, better stewards of the earth. And that's one of the things we also do here at our house, is that we focus on vegan and vegetarian food. Part of that is related to, consuming animals as meat. And that doesn't mean just cats or dogs. That also means pigs, that means chickens, that means fish. This is all part of looking at how do we look at animals as a whole, and how do we do a better job of protecting them. And so we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm towards pet ownership, towards animal welfare in Vietnam and around the region. And you're seeing more organizations that are popping up that are specific on animal welfare in Asia. And this is a really good thing because it gives people a chance to get involved and have a voice and be heard and take action to support the movement and the changing of the culture and the changing of the way that animals are treated in the region.
Yeah, I think that's what your mindset. So you mentioned like a vegan, right? Vegan. And I think from the beginning, your staff recommend me this is a vegan hamburger. There's no meat consumption.
That's right.
This is the vegan coffee as well.
That's right.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So we put a strong focus on how can we also change people's perspective on consumption of food, and how they can actually have something really delicious, quite nutritious, and similar to what they're used to having, but it doesn't have to have any animal products. So this is a big focus for us because, one, it is aligned with our mission of animal rescue, but two, it also allows us to build a space where we can have animals and food without the animals trying to eat the food, which is obviously good for us because we want the people who are here to enjoy without having any interference. So when the food is vegan or vegetarian, the animals aren't interested in it because they're only eating meat.
Yeah.
So this is also something that supports our business model as a social enterprise to operate so effectively.
All right. Good. Thank you. As you mentioned about our business model, can you let me know what is the biggest challenge when you're working in in the animal shelter in Vietnam?
One of the really challenging aspects of working in animal welfare and working with live beings, right, living beings, is that there are things which you cannot predict, and a lot of things that are health related, especially when you're working with rescue dogs or rescue cats.
Mm-hmm.
They could have internal conditions. They could have something happen because of playing or being too rough and they're playing with other dogs. They can be allergic to something, and that can lead to a medical situation which requires more care or more investment in order to ensure that they're healthy. So for us, one of the challenges is how do we prepare for the unexpected while also still running a large operation with around more than 30 staff and more than 50 animals. The other thing is looking at the conception that people have towards rescue animals. A lot of times people think that rescue dogs may be aggressive, or they may not be well behaved, or they may be unclean or unhealthy, because their experience with stray or abandoned dogs is such that they're out on the street, they look really dirty, they look like they're unhealthy, and they are. And that's why we're working to rescue them. But they're very surprised often when they find that you can have so many dogs that are well behaved, that are attractive and well groomed, and that they are really ready to be adopted into a family life. So this is one of the things that is both a challenge and an opportunity. It's related to the education of people when they understand that these are all rescue animals, and these rescue animals have now a second phase of life, a second chance at life to change how they were living before and live in a way that is healthier for them and also can benefit others in terms of adding value and adding happiness and joy into the lives of their adopted family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. Thank you for sharing from your operation side, and understand somehow of your biggest challenge when running the animal shelter in Vietnam. The thing is, with the business model, like what I understand here is the F&B service. But do you have any other activities that makes our house stand out or different from other shelters?
Sure. So as you mentioned at the beginning, our house is really a community space as well as an F&B and an animal shelter. So one of the things that we really focus on is how do we bring the community in to learn more about animal welfare and to strengthen the bonds between the community. And for us, a big part of this is bringing together both foreigners and locals to share that common interest and to learn together and to work together towards a common cause. So this is something that there's not really any other physical spaces that exist to facilitate that conversation. And so we really pride ourselves on being a space that is inclusive and welcoming to everyone in the community, whether you're a first-time pet owner, whether you are scared of dogs, whether you have had dogs your whole life, so that people can come together and appreciate and embrace the space and also the mission, and think about how a business can also be a power and emotion for good. So this is one of our core aspects of being a community space, is holding events, doing kind of routine events as well as signature events every year, and doing something called rescue road trips. This is our chance to connect with shelters outside of the main city center and give people a first-hand chance to experience and understand what the shelters are like, what they're going through, and how we can support them. So rescue road trips are out-of-town trips that we arrange with community members and guests of our house, where they can join us. They can also bring their animals along to visit shelters and also areas around the shelter, to have an out-of-town trip that's also a trip with a purpose, a kind of sustainable and social tourism, where we can introduce them to the bigger situation of animal welfare in this region of Vietnam, and also get them more engaged so they can play a part in making a contribution towards that enhancement of animal welfare.
I see. Okay. Wow. All good ideas.
Thank
How
you.
long did you execute the? You mean the trip, right? The road trip?
Yeah.
What is the name? Let's say it again.
Yeah, rescue road trip.
Rescue road trip. How long did you execute that ideas?
Well, this idea actually happened at the end of 2021. It started with a bit of a tragic event where two individuals coming from Ho Chi Minh City were returning to the province. When they were returning, they had all of their dogs and a couple of cats with them, returning to the province. And this was in the time of COVID, when people were...
I remember that all people go to Cà Mau province, right?
That's right. Okay. And unfortunately, their animals were all cold when the authorities found out that the couple had COVID. a lot of people didn't know or didn't have any idea about what they can do to address that situation or to try to make something positive come out of that very negative situation. And Geneva had an idea of, well, one, they're not the only individuals who are relocating with their pets during a hard time, but two, we can bring the community together to show that we're going to do something. And that's when the first rescue road trip started. That was a trip to reunite pets with their families during the COVID era. And then we expanded that to be something where we could introduce the community to the bigger rescue and animal welfare community in the region by coordinating trips that were intentionally designed where people could bring donations, they could learn more about the shelters, and they could have their own chance to contribute to the impact of animal welfare.
I love the idea that you observe from real situation and you bring it to the reality, and then implement that continuously from the end of 2021 until now.
That's right.
I love that idea.
And we have to be willing to put ourselves out there and also think about how can we evolve and take things to the next level in terms of how the community, how leaders, how people who have ideas can actually execute them in a way that transforms and allows the situation to evolve. So this is something that a lot of people might think that's a really crazy idea, like how could that actually happen in reality? But as you mentioned, we take a negative situation and we turn it into something positive and then build and evolve that concept so it can have more impact over time.
Thank you. What I know, dogs in our house is not only the homeless ones or the one rescued from the slaughter. They are also the victims of the breeding situation in Vietnam. Most of them suffer from serious health disease due to the genetic disorders, such as skin disease, being born blind, disabled, or have heart disease. Did you take any action to help prevent this situation?
Yeah, well, you're totally right that in terms of some of the animal welfare and dog challenges that we have here is specific to breeding. And with breeding, when it's not regulated, when there's not an association that helps to accredit and confirm the proper and safe way to do breeding, there's inbreeding, and that leads to a lot of health issues. Predominantly the ones that we see are developmental issues, usually in terms of physical. So hip dysplasia, albinism, issues with mobility, issues with internal organs, things like that. But also one of the challenges of breeding is that there's a preference for a certain type or look of dog, but there's not really an understanding of how to take care of them the right way. So one of the challenges that we see a lot is that people get a certain kind of dog because it looks good, or they think it's cute, or they think it's handsome or beautiful or whatever, but then they don't really understand the kind of care that is required to take care of them. And of course, in a Southeast Asian tropical climate, certain breeds are not really meant to be here, such as the Alaskan. So you see that people bring these dogs in because of their looks, but they don't really think about the impacts on the animal and their long-term health. So this is one of the things that we really work to address through education, and looking at the idea of adopting instead of shopping. Because when we have the chance to support so many animals that are amazing, loving, kind creatures, we can give them a different life, and they can be just as friendly, just as fun, just as loving as any kind of bred dog. But the challenges that come with breeding is also that people are willing to pay. And as long as people are willing to pay and there's money to be had, there will still be that industry.
Right. I think that will be the long story, and then maybe we come up with another topic, another episode about that situation. Thank you. I think it's a coincidence that yesterday when I doing some research, and I found out there's an article of VietnamNet just published last May. It's about the breeding issues in Vietnam as well. The poor facility when they breed it and they provide to the puppies or the kittens, and Yeah, there's a lot of the number that are loading. I will send you that link later.
Thank you. Yeah. It's, as you mentioned, it's certainly an issue and a conversation that we could have a whole podcast about, a whole episode about, because it also evolves as the situation of pet ownership evolves. The situation with breeding and purchasing of animals will also change.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. What is the situation that annoy you much about the behavior or the attitude of people toward your shelter?
I'm not sure if it's annoy or bothers us, but it's the consideration that people struggle to understand the full concept of what we do, and that they may simplify what we do as either being just an animal shelter, or they think we're just a coffee shop, and they don't understand yet the full ecosystem of what we're building. And so this is one of the areas that we are really focusing on at our house, is how do we communicate effectively about the bigger picture of what we're working towards, and the fact that this is more than just a dog coffee, or it's more than just an animal shelter. It's a comprehensive and very intentionally designed structure that allows the community to support and sustain animal rescue in a way that hasn't been done before, in a way that is complicated but feasible. And so we see that education and the understanding of the people is something that we really work to promote through our online materials, through our offline materials, through our events and our mission-driven activities. The other challenge that we see is when people don't come here necessarily for the animals. They come here for themselves to do something like take pictures, or take pictures just with a certain breed of dog that look a certain way, because they think maybe they'll get more likes, they'll get more engagement because they are focusing on the really handsome dogs. It's great that they've come here and they're supporting the concept, but we want them to really see the bigger picture of the heart and the soul of all the animals that we have, and how each one is special, and each one is able to give and receive love, and have a change of heart, have a change of their life because of the intentional design and the care and the time that we give to them. And so that's what we want people to see, is that transformation, whether they're a super attractive big Malamute, or whether they're a kind of normal looking regular local Vietnamese dog. How can we enlighten them and share that love and that joy that every dog can bring to our lives, and also allow them to see that bigger picture of dogs as living beings, as beings that can have that connection, whether you find it immediately or not.
Got it. Thank you. I just read very recently one of the news in our house on social media, that there are situations that at night people bring the dogs or puppy in front of your shelter and they run away. So do you have any works or any works that you want to share to the public, to the pet community?
Sure. Well, the situation of people dropping off animals at our doorstep is something that we have always wanted to avoid since the beginning. Not because we don't want to help, but because when we look at how do we do something sustainably, if we have surprises coming in, if we have a lot of unpredictable rhythm to the rescue work that we do, it makes it very hard to sustain. So this is actually why we call our house instead of rescue house, is that we don't want everyone understanding immediately that we are a rescue center, because with that comes what every shelter in Vietnam has, which is people dropping animals off at their door almost every single week. And this is something that makes the situation of animal welfare and animal rescue very difficult to manage, because you may have budgeted out how much money you have and how many animals you have and how you can take care of them. When 5 new puppies arrive at your doorstep and you don't know, are they vaccinated? Have they been neutered? Have they been spayed? What is their health situation? Where do they come from? Then it brings a lot of unexpected costs into there. So for us, we are so thankful that we have established ourselves as a trusted place where people know that animals will be very well taken care of with us at our house. That being said, we're always here for a conversation. We're always here to communicate and to find a way to structure that situation so that it can be more sustainable. For instance, we can work with shelters that are ready to take in animals that for whatever reason can't be taken care of in their current home. But when they're just dropped off without a conversation, it makes it very hard to find a really good long-term solution.
I see. Got it. Thank you, Alex. You manage a lot of works for our house, like included operation for this F&B service, and also manage the social media channel of our house as well. I see on the post of our house in the Facebook fan page is very fine-tuned, like part of in English, part of in Vietnamese to attract on to like expats and Vietnamese audience, and also every image or every video or picture is very fine-tuned. So I believe you have a big team to support, isn't it?
Well, we have a very committed team, and we have a very talented team, and a team that we're very proud of. A lot of our team members have been with us for over 3 years, basically since we began our house. And we've seen the evolution of those team members and expanding their contribution and their role because they have a better understanding of what we do. They see how they can contribute their own skills and talents to that. And we are always fostering a kind of family style facilitation of the work that we do, where people realize that it's not just about the work and about earning money, but they're recruited based off of their care and consideration for the animals. So first and foremost is that they have that heart for the work, and then we can teach and we can guide and we can support them with anything else that we need to do. So we have very high standards in terms of how do we run this operation in a way that gives the priority to the animals and their welfare, but also allows us to continue to grow in our impact and in our mission, whether that's in new events, new activities, new offerings, or just continually enhancing our space and the work that we do.
That's lovely. Thank you, Alex, for coming to the show, and thank you for your love and kindness that you bring to the Saigon people. I believe what you brought to Vietnam is not only about the jobs, but the mission to inspire and the purpose to continue.
And thank you so much for inviting us to be on the show. I'm happy to represent our house in this capacity, and also to raise more awareness about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. It is a privilege, really, to be able to do the work that we do here, and there is no way that we could do it without the amazing support of the community. So we really want to invite everyone to come to our house to learn about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and see and feel why we're doing it. When you come here, that's when you really get to have the full rescue experience, and that's something we want everybody to be able to enjoy here in Saigon.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and see you soon at our house.
Okay. So everyone, go adopt a dog at our house if you can, or come here, visit, eat, drink, or spread your words about this little heaven to your friends. One like, one share on social media, who knows, can help a dog here to have a new forever home.